Admiral Zolak stood before the massive view screen, his forearms crossed behind his back in the formal military stance of the Vaxtari Dominion. The blue planet grew larger as their massive flagship approached. "Report," he commanded, his voice echoing across the silent bridge. "The planet has approximately 200 million Vaxtari-equivalent life forms, Admiral," the science officer replied. "Their technology is primitive. They have barely reached their own moon. No energy shields, no faster-than-light travel, no unified planetary government." Zolak flicked his upper right hand in dismissal. "Easy conquest, then. Our 20 million warriors should make quick work of them." The High Command was right to only send a standard invasion force. The science officer hesitated. "There is one unusual reading, Admiral. Their brain scans show high neuroplasticity and unusual problem-solving patterns." "Noted but irrelevant," Zolak said. "Begin standard invasion protocol." Dr. Sarah Chen was working late at the Deep Space Monitoring Station in Hawaii when all the systems suddenly lit up with alerts. "What in the world?" she whispered, fingers flying across the keyboard. The readings made no sense. Massive objects were appearing at the edge of the solar system, moving at speeds that should be impossible. She reached for her phone with shaking hands. "General Williams, this is Dr. Chen at Mauna Kea. You need to see this now." Within hours, scientists and military experts from around the world were connected via emergency video conference. The atmosphere was tense as Dr. Chen shared her findings. "These objects are artificial and massive, each one bigger than our largest aircraft. Carriers," she explained. "They're decelerating as they approach, which means they're under controlled power. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not alone, and whoever they are, they're coming here." General Williams, a stern-faced woman with graying hair, leaned forward. "How long do we have?" "At their current speed, 3 weeks, maybe less." The President of the United States joined the call, his face grave. "Options, people, I need options." "We could try to communicate," suggested Dr. Patel from NASA. "Send signals of peace." "While preparing for the worst," added General Williams, "we need to mobilize every military asset worldwide." "That won't be easy," said the Chinese military representative. "Our nations don't exactly have a history of cooperation." The president's gaze hardened. "Then it's time we make history." Over the next 2 weeks, humanity witnessed something unprecedented: cooperation on a global scale. Ancient enemies shared military secrets. Scientists who had once competed now worked around the clock together. When the strange signals from the approaching fleet were finally decoded, the message was simple and chilling. "Prepare for integration into the Vaxtari Dominion. Resistance is mathematically futile." The first alien ships entered Earth's atmosphere exactly 17 days after Dr. Chen's discovery. They positioned themselves above major cities worldwide, massive dark shapes blocking out the sun. In the White House Situation Room, military leaders watched helplessly as the first alien transmission came through on all channels worldwide. Admiral Zolak's face appeared on screen. Humanoid but clearly alien, with gray-blue skin and 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern. "People of Earth," he began, his voice translated into all human languages simultaneously. "Your planet is now under the protection of the Vaxtari Dominion. Submit and your transition will be peaceful. Resist and you will be subdued. We outnumber your military forces 100 to 1. You have 6 hours to surrender your governmental authority." The transmission ended. Silence filled the room. 100 to 1, whispered the Secretary of Defense. "How can we possibly fight those odds?" Dr. Chen, who had been invited due to her discovery, spoke up. "By not fighting the way they expect us to fight." All eyes turned to her. "Look at that message. Resistance is mathematically futile. They think in pure numbers. That tells us something about how they think." She stood and addressed the room. "I've been analyzing their communications. They're incredibly organized, almost like a hive mind, but that might be their weakness." "Explain," the president said. "They expect us to either surrender or mount a conventional defense, armies against armies. But humanity has never won its greatest battles through numbers, alone." She pulled up images from history. guerrilla fighters, resistance movements, hackers breaking into supposedly secure systems. We need to become unpredictable. If they think in rigid patterns, we need to be chaos. Admiral Jolak was confused. The 6-hour deadline had passed, but instead of either surrender or the expected military response, Earth had gone silent. No communications, no visible troop movements. Begin the first landing phase, he ordered. Take control of their governmental centers. Vaxtari dropships descended on Washington, D.C., Beijing, Moscow, and other capitals. The landing teams reported no resistance. The cities appeared evacuated. Then the attacks began. Not from armies, but from everywhere and nowhere. Small teams of humans using improvised weapons. Computer systems suddenly failing on Vaxtari ships. Misinformation spreading through their communication channels. In his command center, Jolak received increasingly desperate reports. A small team of humans had captured a Vaxtari weapon and figured out how to use it in less than an hour. Another group had somehow hacked into the dropship's navigation systems, causing 3 to crash. This is not possible, his executive officer said. They are primitive, we outnumber them, this cannot be happening. But it was. The supposedly simple conquest was becoming a nightmare. When a human child, managed to reprogram a Vaxtari communication device to broadcast false retreat orders, Jolak realized they had made a terrible mistake. He stared at the tactical display showing his forces scrambling in confusion across the planet. For the first time in his long military career, Admiral Jolak felt something new. Doubt. They don't fight like any species we've encountered, he said quietly. Numbers don't seem to matter to them. Outside the flagship, Earth's night side came into view. Despite the invasion, lights still burned in cities and towns. Humanity was not surrendering. They were adapting, learning, fighting back in ways the Vaxtari had never imagined possible. Jolak touched the ship's communication panel. He needed to contact the High Command. This would not be the easy victory they had predicted. Not at all. 3 days after the initial landings, Admiral Jolak called an emergency meeting with his command staff. The large circular room aboard the flagship buzzed with nervous energy as officers took their seats. Our standard invasion protocol is failing, Jolak stated bluntly. The humans are not fighting according to any battle doctrine we've encountered in 17 conquered star systems. He activated the central holographic display showing a map of Earth with red dots marking Vaxtari positions. We control only 12% of their major cities despite deploying over 2 million troops. Commander Vex, his most experienced officer, stepped forward. The humans refuse to mass their forces where we can crush them. They scatter like insects when we arrive, only to return in small groups that strike and disappear. And their adaptability is concerning, added the science officer. They've already learned to use our own weapons against us. A human child reprogrammed one of our communication devices in hours, something that takes our engineers years of training to master. Jolak's 4 eyes narrowed. We need to adjust our strategy. Double the landing forces in their major population centers. Cut off their food supplies. The Dominion has never failed to conquer a world, and we will not fail now. In a repurposed subway tunnel beneath New York City, Dr. Chen hunched over a stolen Vaxtari communication device. Around her, a diverse group of unlikely fighters gathered. A high school computer teacher, an auto mechanic, a retired Marine, and a 16-year-old hacking prodigy named Miguel. I think I've got it, Dr. Chen said, connecting wires between the alien device and a modified laptop. Their communication system is based on a form of quantum entanglement, but it has standardized security protocols. They never expected anyone to try hacking it. Because no one ever has, Miguel said with a grin. Until now, General Williams entered the makeshift command center. Her uniform was gone, replaced by practical civilian clothes that allowed her to move unnoticed above ground. Report, she said. We can listen to all their communications now, Dr. Chen explained. And better yet, we might be able to insert our own messages soon. The general nodded. Good. The resistance cells in Chicago and Los Angeles have captured some of their weapons. Tokyo reports they've figured out a weakness in the aliens' body armor. Apparently, they have poor peripheral vision and can't see well to their left side. What about the counterattack in Washington? The retired Marine asked. Successful, Williams replied. The aliens expected us to defend the White House directly. Instead, we let them take it, then hit their supply lines. They have no idea how to secure a city with thousands of hiding places and underground passages. Miguel looked up from his computer. I've been analyzing their ship movements. These aliens operate like a hive. They follow strict patterns and protocols. They literally can't improvise. Dr. Chen's eyes lit up. That's it. That's their weakness. They evolved as pack hunters with rigid hierarchies. They can't handle chaos and unpredictability. It overloads their neural systems. Then let's give them chaos, Williams said with a grim smile. Captain Thex of the Vaxtari 5th Division led his unit through the abandoned streets of London. Their mission was simple: secure the human communication hub they had detected nearby. Life signs ahead, his scanner operator reported. A small group, likely resistance fighters. Thex arranged his troops in standard formation, a practice that had worked on a dozen worlds before. Advance and eliminate resistance, he ordered. They moved forward in perfect unison, turning a corner to face. Nothing. The street was empty. These readings came from here, the scanner operator insisted. Suddenly, loud music blasted from speakers hidden in buildings all around them. Bright strobe lights flashed from windows. The Vaxtari soldiers froze, their senses overwhelmed. What is happening? Thex demanded, his 4 eyes struggling to process the chaotic input. From rooftops, alleyways, and sewers, humans emerged with captured alien weapons and improvised explosives. The attack was not coordinated in any way the Vaxtari understood. Each human seemed to act independently, yet somehow part of a whole. Thex tried to organize a defense, but his troops couldn't establish their usual formation. The sensory overload combined with the unpredictable attack patterns left them disoriented. Within minutes, the entire unit was defeated, their weapons and equipment captured by the humans. Similar scenes played out across the planet. In Tokyo, resistance fighters used the aliens' left side blind spot to devastating effect. In Rio de Janeiro, hackers disrupted the invaders' navigation systems, sending their dropships to wrong locations. In Nairobi, locals used knowledge of the terrain to lead alien patrols into deadly ambushes. Admiral Jolak watched with growing horror as reports flooded in. 1 week into what should have been a simple conquest, the mighty Vaxtari Dominion was being humiliated by primitives. How is this possible? He demanded of no one in particular. We outnumber them 100 to 1. Numbers appear to be irrelevant to them, Admiral, his science officer replied cautiously. They don't fight as a unified force but as thousands of independent cells, each adapting to local conditions. There is no central command structure for us to target, a communication officer interrupted. Admiral, we're receiving strange transmissions on our secure channels. It appears the humans have hacked our quantum entanglement network. Jolak's skin paled to a light blue. Impossible. That technology is beyond their comprehension. Nevertheless, the officer continued, false orders are being sent to our ground forces. 3 divisions have already walked into traps thinking they were following your commands. Jolak stared at the tactical display showing the spreading chaos among his troops. Something fundamental had been miscalculated about these humans. They didn't fight like any species the Dominion had encountered before. Contact the High Command, he ordered. Request reinforcements and authorization for Level 2 planetary subjugation measures. For the first time in his long career, Admiral Jolak felt something he had never experienced before: doubt that numerical superiority would guarantee victory. These humans fought as if each one contained the unpredictability of an entire species, and they were learning. Faster than should be possible. 1 month into the invasion, Subcommander Kelth stood in the rain outside a captured human building in what the locals called Berlin. His squad had taken the structure 3 days ago, but something was wrong. The humans weren't trying to take it back. Report, he ordered his scanner operator. No life signs within 500 meters, Commander, but... The operator hesitated. Speak freely. The readings keep changing. One moment I detect 30 humans, the next none. Our equipment might be malfunctioning. Kelth's 4 eyes narrowed. Or the humans have learned to fool our scanners. A loud cracking sound split the air. Kelth turned to see one of his soldiers collapse, purple blood spreading across the wet pavement. "Take cover," he shouted, but more shots came from seemingly everywhere. Rooftops, windows, even storm drains. "Where are they?" a soldier cried out. "Everywhere," Kelth realized. And nowhere. 10 miles away, in an abandoned subway station, Dr. Chen studied the recovered Vaxitari neural implant. The resistance had managed to extract it from a captured officer before he took his own life. "This is incredible," she told Miguel and General Williams. "Their entire society is built around group coordination. Their neural systems are designed to work in perfect harmony with others of their kind, which explains why they can't handle unpredictability," Miguel added. "Their brains literally can't process rapid changes or unexpected events." Williams nodded thoughtfully. "So, every time we change tactics mid-battle, it's like a computer crash for them," Dr. Chen finished. "Their brains need time to reset and receive new instructions from their commanders. That's why they always pause when we do something unexpected," Miguel said excitedly. "We thought they were confused, but they're actually waiting for their brains to reboot." Dr. Chen connected the alien neural device to their makeshift computer. "If we can reverse engineer this technology, we might be able to create a weapon that specifically targets their neural networks." "A chaos bomb," Williams said with a grim smile. "Something that overloads their system with contradictory information." "Exactly," Chen replied. "And I know just the people to help us build it." Admiral Zolak reviewed the latest reports with growing concern. What had begun as a simple conquest had become a nightmare. 3 major landing forces had been completely destroyed. Thousands of pieces of Vaxitari technology had been captured. And most disturbing of all, the humans were beginning to understand Vaxitari biology better than the Vaxitari understood humans. "Admiral," his executive officer interrupted, "we've captured a human resistance leader. He might have valuable information." The prisoner was brought in, a middle-aged human male with graying hair and defiant eyes. "You are defeated," Zolak stated matter-of-factly. "Why do your people continue to resist? It is illogical. We outnumber you 100 to 1. The human laughed, a sound that made the Admiral's skin crawl. "Numbers," the prisoner said. "That's all you understand, isn't it? How many ships, how many soldiers? Your kind evolved as pack hunters, strength in numbers, everyone following the leader. But humans, we evolved differently." Zolak leaned forward, suddenly curious. "Explain." "We evolved as creative problem solvers. When faced with a stronger predator, we didn't try to outfight it. We outsmarted it. When we couldn't outrun something, we built traps. When we couldn't defeat an enemy army head-on, we learned guerrilla tactics." The human smiled, showing his teeth in what Zolak knew was both a sign of amusement and aggression in their species. "Your people are very good at following orders," the prisoner continued. "Humans? We're good at breaking rules and finding new ways to do the impossible. You may have numbers, but we have something you don't understand: imagination." In Nairobi, a team of engineers and former video game designers worked day and night on Dr. Chen's chaos bomb. They had converted an old basketball arena into a workshop filled with stolen alien technology and human computers. "The concept is simple," explained Dr. Mbeki, a neuroscientist. "The Vaxitari neural system can't handle sensory overload or contradictory information, so we create a device that broadcasts directly into their neural frequency." Sarah, a former virtual reality programmer, nodded excitedly. "We're basically hacking their brains. The signal will make them see, hear, and feel things that aren't there. Different things for each soldier. Complete chaos." "How soon can we deploy it?" asked their team leader. 3 days, Dr. Mbeki replied. "We've already built 5 prototypes. Each one can affect Vaxitari soldiers within a half-mile radius. And they have no defense against this?" Sarah shook her head. "Their neural communication is a fundamental part of their biology. They can't turn it off any more than we can stop our hearts from beating. In his private quarters, Admiral Jolak reviewed the prisoner's words. The human had been returned to the brig, but his explanation haunted the Admiral. Imagination. The concept was difficult for Jolak to grasp fully. The Vax Tari valued order, hierarchy, and clearly defined roles. Their society had advanced through disciplined incremental improvements to existing technologies. The idea of radical innovation, of completely new approaches, was almost alien to them. Yet these humans, these primitives, seemed to thrive on it. A disturbing thought formed in Jolak's mind. What if the Dominion's approach to conquest was fundamentally flawed when it came to this species? What if numerical superiority meant nothing against an opponent who changed the rules of engagement with every encounter? His communication panel chimed, interrupting his thoughts. "Admiral," his science officer's voice came through. "We have detected unusual energy signatures in multiple human cities. They appear to be experimenting with our neural communication technology." Jolak felt a cold sensation spread through his body. Fear, an emotion rarely experienced by his kind. "How is that possible?" he demanded. "Our neural technology is biological, not mechanical." "Unknown, Admiral. But the humans seem to be adapting it for some purpose. Our scientists cannot determine what." Jolak stared out the viewport at the blue planet below. 1 month ago, he had arrived confident of an easy victory. Now he wondered if the Dominion had made the greatest miscalculation in its 1,000-year history. "Prepare a full report for the High Command," he ordered, "and request permission for extreme measures. These humans are unlike any species we have encountered before." The science officer hesitated before responding. "Admiral, are you suggesting—" "Yes," Jolak replied grimly. "If we cannot defeat them conventionally, we must consider biosphere-level weapons, before these humans learn too much about us." As the communication ended, Admiral Jolak wondered if even such drastic measures would be enough. The humans had already proven remarkably resilient and adaptable. Perhaps numbers truly didn't matter against a species that specialized in achieving the impossible. 6 weeks into the invasion, humanity was ready to launch its most ambitious counterattack. In a hidden bunker beneath the Rocky Mountains, leaders from around the world gathered around a holographic display showing Vax Tari positions. "Operation Bedlam begins at dawn," General Williams announced. "The Chaos Bombs will be deployed simultaneously in 12 major cities where the Vax Tari have their strongest presence." Dr. Chen pointed to red dots on the map. "Each device should affect their neural networks within a half-mile radius. Their soldiers will experience complete sensory overload, seeing, hearing, and feeling things that aren't there. And while they're disoriented," Williams continued, "our strike teams will capture their command centers and communication hubs. If we control their communication network, we can send false orders to their entire invasion force." Miguel finished with a grin. President Martinez, who had been evacuated from Washington when the invasion began, looked around the room at the unlikely alliance that had formed. Scientists worked alongside soldiers. Former enemies now planned attacks together. Technology experts from dozens of countries had collaborated to understand alien systems that should have been centuries beyond their comprehension. "This operation could be the turning point," he said quietly. "But even if it succeeds, Admiral Jolak still has thousands of ships in orbit. If we push them too far," Dr. Chen nodded grimly, "they might resort to orbital bombardment. But my team has been working on a countermeasure for that too. In New Delhi, which had become a major Vax Tari stronghold, Commander Vrak supervised the unloading of new weapons from orbit. The strange resistance of the humans had forced the Dominion to deploy technologies normally reserved for much more advanced opponents. "Secure the neural disruptors in the central compound," he ordered. "These weapons should neutralize the humans' unpredictable attack patterns." His second-in-command saluted with all 4 arms. "The Admiral believes these weapons will finally break the humans' resistance." "The Admiral is correct, as always," Vrax replied automatically, though privately he had begun to doubt. Something about these humans troubled him deeply. They seemed to learn and adapt faster than any species the Dominion had encountered. Just as this thought formed, a strange, high-pitched tone filled the air. Vrax clutched his head as impossible images flooded his vision. Snow falling upward. Buildings melting, the ground rippling like water. "What is happening?" he tried to ask, but his words came out garbled. Around him, his soldiers were having similar reactions, some frozen in place, others firing weapons at enemies only they could see. Through the chaos of conflicting sensory inputs, Vrax saw humans emerging from hiding places throughout the compound. They moved with purpose, ignoring the disoriented Vaxtari soldiers and heading straight for the communication center. Vrax tried to warn the other compounds, but his neural implant was overwhelmed with contradictory signals. For the first time, in his life he was completely alone in his mind, cut off from the comforting presence of the collective consciousness that all Vaxtari shared. The isolation was terrifying. Similar scenes played out in cities worldwide. The chaos bombs worked better than anyone had expected, completely disabling Vaxtari forces without harming humans. Within hours, resistance fighters had captured key alien installations and, more importantly, their communication networks. In Tiu, the London command center, Miguel worked furiously at a captured alien console. "I'm in their quantum entanglement system," he announced. "We can now send orders that will be received by every Vaxtari soldier on Earth." Dr. Chen looked over his shoulder. "What should we tell them to do?" "Return to their ships," General Williams suggested. "Get them off our planet." "They'll just regroup and attack again," the British commander pointed out. Miguel's fingers danced across the alien interface. "What if we send contradicting orders to different groups? Tell some to advance, others to retreat, others to hold position. Their whole system depends on coordination." "Complete chaos," Dr. Chen nodded. "It might buy us enough time to implement the next phase of our plan." Aboard his flagship, Admiral Jolak watched in horror as his invasion force fell into complete disarray. The humans had somehow hijacked the sacred quantum entanglement network, a technology that had been the backbone of Vaxtari society for millennia. "Admiral," his executive officer reported, "ground forces are receiving contradictory commands. Some units are firing on each other, believing they're fighting humans. Others are abandoning their positions. We've lost control." "Cut the neural link," Zolak ordered desperately. "Disconnect all ground forces from the network." "Impossible, Admiral. The neural link is biological. We cannot simply turn it off." Jolak stared at the tactical display showing the rapidly deteriorating situation. Thousands of years of Vaxtari military doctrine was unraveling before his eyes. An invasion force of 20 million elite warriors was being defeated by a primitive species that should have surrendered at first contact. "Prepare the biosphere weapons," he said grimly. "If we cannot conquer this world, we will make it uninhabitable." His science officer stepped forward cautiously. "Admiral, with respect, the High Command has not yet authorized such measures." "I am authorizing it," Jolak snapped. "These humans have proven too dangerous. They have already reverse-engineered our neural technology. Given time, they might learn to replicate our faster-than-light drives or energy weapons. The threat to the Dominion is too great." As his officers hurried to comply, Jolak turned back to the viewport. The beautiful blue planet below now seemed threatening rather than inviting. How had everything gone so wrong? In the Rocky Mountain bunker, Dr. Chen's assistant burst into the command center. "We've intercepted communications from the flagship. They're preparing to deploy biosphere weapons, engineered pathogens designed to wipe out all life on Earth." The room fell silent. This was the scenario they had feared but hoped to avoid. "How long do we have?" President Martinez asked. "The weapons will be ready to deploy in 6 hours. Dr. Chen stepped forward. "We need to implement Operation Sunstorm immediately." "But it hasn't been tested," Williams objected. "We don't know if it will work." "We have no choice," Chen replied. "Either we try or we all die." She turned to Miguel. "Can you access their ship systems through the quantum entanglement network?" The young hacker looked uncertain. "Maybe. Their ships probably have better security than their ground forces, but they all use the same communication protocols. If I can find a weakness..." Do it, President Martinez ordered. This is our last chance. As Miguel began working, Dr. Chen explained. To the others, Operation Sunstorm targets their ship's power cores. If we can cause a cascade failure in their energy systems, we might be able to disable their fleet before they can deploy the biosphere weapons. And if it fails? Someone asked. Chen's expression was grim. Then humanity joins the list of species the Vaxtari Dominion has conquered. The fate of Earth now rested on the shoulders of a 16-year-old hacker and the ingenuity of a species that refused to accept defeat, even when outnumbered 100 to 1. The atmosphere in the bunker was tense as Miguel worked. His fingers flew across the modified alien interface while Dr. Chen and General Williams watched anxiously over his shoulders. Their ship systems have multiple security layers, Miguel explained, not looking up from his work. But they all connect through the same quantum entanglement network. If I can find a single vulnerability. Dr. Chen handed him a cup of coffee. 5 hours left, the biosphere weapons will be ready soon. Miguel took a sip and returned to his work. I think I see a pattern. Their security is incredibly complex, but it's also perfectly predictable. No randomness, no creativity. On the main display screen, data streamed by in alien symbols that had taken human linguists weeks to decipher. Now Miguel read them as easily as his native Spanish. There, he suddenly exclaimed. I found it. Their power control systems have an emergency shutdown protocol. It's designed to prevent catastrophic overloads. Can you trigger it remotely? Williams asked. Miguel grinned. Better than that. I can modify it. Instead of shutting down when power levels get too high, I can make the system increase power even more. Creating a cascade failure, Dr. Chen nodded. Brilliant. How many ships can you affect? President Martinez asked. Miguel's expression grew serious. All of them. The protocol is standard across their entire fleet. But there's a problem. The flagship has additional security. I can't access it without physically connecting to their systems. The room fell silent. Then General Williams spoke. So someone has to get onto the flagship. Admiral Zolak paced the bridge of his ship. 4, arms clasped behind his back. Biosphere weapons at 70% preparation, his weapons officer reported. Ready to deploy in 3 hours. Good, Zolak replied. Target their most populated areas first. Their species has proven too dangerous to the Dominion. The High Command will understand the necessity of my decision. His executive officer approached cautiously. Admiral, ground units report a new development. The humans are surrendering. Zolak stopped pacing. Explain. White flags are being raised in major cities. Their leaders are requesting communication with you directly. The Admiral's 4 eyes narrowed suspiciously. After all this resistance, they suddenly surrender when victory was within their grasp? This makes no sense. Perhaps they detected our biosphere weapons, the executive officer suggested. They may have realized their situation is hopeless. Zolak considered this. The humans had proven remarkably adept at understanding Vaxtari technology. It was possible they had detected the weapons preparation. Very well. I will speak with their leaders, but continue preparing the weapons. Dr. Chen adjusted her uniform nervously as the transport shuttle approached the massive alien flagship. The plan was incredibly risky, but they had no alternative. Beside her sat General Williams and President Martinez. Their surrender delegation was a cover to get aboard the flagship. In Miguel's backpack was a small device that would connect to the flagship systems and trigger the modified shutdown protocol across the entire Vaxtari fleet. Remember, Williams whispered, we only need 10 minutes for Miguel to connect his device. Keep the Admiral talking as long as possible. The shuttle docked with a metallic clang. Armed Vaxtari soldiers escorted them through endless corridors of the massive ship. Finally, they were led into a large circular room where Admiral Zolak waited. So, the Admiral said, his voice translated through a small device. Humanity finally accepts the inevitable. President Martinez stepped forward. We wish to discuss terms of surrender that would preserve human lives. There are no terms, Zolak replied coldly. Your species has proven too unpredictable, too dangerous. You will submit completely to Dominion authority. As the president engaged the Admiral in negotiation, Miguel quietly slipped away from the group. The Vaxitari guards, focused on the official delegation, didn't notice his absence. Following the ship schematics they had extracted from captured data, he made his way toward a maintenance access point. In the command center back on Earth, teams of scientists and engineers watched Miguel's progress through a hidden camera in his backpack. They had precisely calculated how long it would take him to reach the access point and connect his device. "He's almost there," one engineer reported. 2 minutes to connection. On another screen, they could see the diplomatic meeting. Dr. Chen was now speaking, explaining humanity's cultural diversity to the Admiral, buying time for Miguel. "If he succeeds," a scientist asked, "what happens to our people on the flagship?" No one answered. Everyone knew it was a suicide mission. Miguel found the access panel exactly where the schematics indicated. He pulled out his device, a modified version of the Chaos Bomb, connected to a tablet with the modified shutdown protocol. His hands trembled slightly as he connected cables to the alien interface. "Just like hacking the school network," he muttered to himself, "only with higher stakes." The interface lit up with alien symbols. Miguel entered the commands he had memorized, uploading the modified protocol to the flagship's power control systems. From there it would spread throughout the fleet via the quantum entanglement network. "Almost there," he whispered. "Just a few more seconds." Back in the meeting room, Admiral Zolak was growing suspicious. "These negotiations serve no purpose. You have no leverage." Suddenly an alarm blared throughout the ship. A Vaxitari officer burst into the room. "Admiral, something is happening to our power systems. Energy levels are rising beyond safe parameters." Jolak's four eyes widened in shock. "Override it. We can't. The command is coming through the quantum network itself." The Admiral turned to the human delegation, rage evident in his alien features. "What have you done?" Dr. Chen met his gaze calmly. "We changed the rules again." Throughout the Vaxitari fleet, power cores began to overload. Emergency systems, instead of reducing power, increased it further. Ships' lights flickered and strange energy pulses ran through their hulls. In the Earth bunker, scientists watched as thousands of alien ships simultaneously lost power, their engines shutting down to prevent complete destruction. "It worked," someone shouted. "Their entire fleet is disabled." On the main screen, they could see the flagship's systems also beginning to fail. Communications from the delegation had gone silent. "What about our people?" "President Martinez's," Aide asked quietly. General Williams, second in command, shook her head. They knew it was a one-way mission. On the flagship, chaos reigned. Systems failed throughout the massive vessel. Artificial gravity fluctuated. Lights dimmed and emergency signs flashed in alien script. Admiral Zolak stared at the humans before him with new understanding. "You never intended to surrender." "No," President Martinez replied. "Humanity doesn't surrender, especially when we're winning." "You cannot win," Zolak insisted. "We outnumber you 100 to 1. Dr. Chen smiled sadly. "Numbers don't matter when you're fighting humans, Admiral. You're just now beginning to understand that." As the flagship's power continued to fail, around them a new chapter in the invasion was about to begin, one that would determine the final fate of both species. The flagship's emergency systems kept it from complete destruction, but most of its functions were offline. In the dim red glow of backup lighting, Admiral Zolak and the human delegation stood in an uneasy standoff. "What happens now?" the Admiral asked, his translator device barely functioning. "Your people on Earth have disabled our fleet, but you are trapped here." President Martinez stepped forward. "We came prepared for that possibility, Admiral. The question is what you will do now." Before Zolak could answer, Miguel slipped back into the room. The Vaxitari guards were too busy with the ship's emergency to notice his return. "It worked," he whispered to Dr. Chen. "The entire fleet is disabled. Their power cores are locked in safe mode. They can maintain life support, but weapons and engines are offline." General Williams addressed the Admiral directly. Your invasion has failed. You cannot deploy your biosphere weapons. You cannot land more troops. You cannot even return to your dominion without our help. You expect me to beg for mercy? Zolak's voice was filled with disbelief. The Dominion does not surrender. Neither does humanity, Dr. Chen replied. But perhaps both our species can learn something new today. On Earth, the remains of the Vaxtari ground forces were in disarray. Without communication from their fleet and with their neural networks disrupted, they fell back to defensive positions. Many simply stopped fighting, waiting for orders that never came. In the Rocky Mountain bunker, the mood was cautiously optimistic. The alien fleet hung powerless in orbit and ground forces were no longer advancing, but there was no word from the delegation on the flagship. "What do we know about their situation?" asked the British commander. "The flagship's power core is stable but minimal," an engineer reported. "Life support is functioning. Communications are down." "So they're alive, but we can't talk to them," someone said. "And the rest of the Vaxtari fleet?" "Same condition. 5,000 ships, all effectively dead in space." A scientist who had been studying the alien technology spoke up. "We might be able to restore their ship's power, on our terms. We understand their systems well enough now." "Why would we help them?" someone demanded. "Because," the scientist replied, "if we don't, 20 million Vaxtari will either die in orbit or be stranded on Earth forever. Neither option benefits humanity." The room fell silent as they considered the implications. In the flagship's conference room, a surprising conversation was taking place. Admiral Zolak, his executive officer, and the human delegation sat around a table designed for aliens twice their size. "You could have destroyed our ships completely," Zolak said. "Why didn't you?" "Unnecessary loss of life serves no purpose," President Martinez replied. "We wanted to stop your invasion, not commit genocide." Zolak's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of deep thought among his species. In 1,000 years of dominion, expansion, no species has ever shown such restraint in victory. "Perhaps that's why no species has ever defeated you before," Dr. Chen suggested. "They tried to fight like you with overwhelming force. We fought differently." "Your species is truly unique," the Admiral admitted. The High Command was catastrophically wrong in their assessment. Miguel, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. "We could help you get home." All eyes, human and alien, turned to the teenager. "I understand your power systems now," he continued. "We could restore enough function for your ships to return to your dominion, but we would need guarantees." "What guarantees could we possibly offer?" the executive officer asked. "Our word means nothing to you." "Not guarantees of words," Dr. Chen explained. "Guarantees of knowledge. Cultural exchange. Understanding. The Dominion tried to conquer us because they didn't understand us. We want to make sure that never happens again." 3 days later, on a grassy field outside the partially rebuilt United Nations building in New York, an historic meeting took place. Admiral Zolak, looking strange in Earth sunlight, signed a document alongside leaders from every human nation. The document was unprecedented, not a peace treaty between nations but between worlds. The Vaxtari fleet would be allowed to return home but with human observers aboard, to establish diplomatic relations with the Dominion. In exchange, the Vaxtari would share specific technologies and knowledge with humanity. After the ceremony, Admiral Zolak approached Dr. Chen privately. "Your species will join the galactic community centuries ahead of schedule," he said. "The Dominion has never been defeated before. The High Command will not understand how this happened." Dr. Chen smiled. "Then explain it to them. Tell them about imagination, about adaptation, about how strength comes in many forms besides numbers." "I will try," Zolak replied. "But I fear they may attempt to conquer Earth again with an even larger force." "They could try," Chen said with quiet confidence. "But now we know what's out there. We'll be ready. And remember, Admiral, if 100 to 1 advantage wasn't enough, 1,000 to 1 won't be either." 1 month later, the Vaxtari fleet departed Earth's orbit, each ship with a small team of human diplomats, scientists, and engineers aboard. Dr. Chen, Miguel, General Williams and President Martinez watched from the observation deck of the newly constructed space station, built with a combination of human and Vax-Tari technology. "Do you think they'll come back peacefully?" Miguel asked. "I hope so," Dr. Chen replied. "But either way, humanity will never be the same. We've proven ourselves on a galactic stage, and we've gained access to technologies that would have taken us centuries to develop on our own," Williams added. President Martinez looked out at the stars, now no longer just points of light but potential destinations. The Vax-Tari thought their greatest strength was their numbers. They were wrong. Our greatest strength was something they couldn't count or measure. Our creativity, our adaptability, our refusal to give up even when the odds seemed impossible. As the alien ships disappeared into faster-than-light travel, Admiral Jolak stood on his bridge dictating his final report to the Dominion archives. "We outnumbered them 100 to 1, it didn't count. Remember that when you meet humans. Numbers mean nothing against a species that makes the impossible their specialty." The report would reach the Dominion capital in 3 months. By then, humanity would already be building its first faster-than-light ship ready to claim its rightful place among the stars, not as conquerors but as innovators whose greatest weapon was not their technology or their numbers, but their uniquely human spirit.